I'm Pete O'Haron, President and CEO of FibroBiologics. We are a public company, so our forward-looking statements are on our website and also on our press releases. Somewhere behind your breastbone right now is an organ shutting down. It's not diseased, it's not damaged, it's doing exactly what it was designed to do, which is to quietly retire. You didn't approve this, nobody asked you. By the time you feel the consequences, it will already be mostly gone. It's about the size of a walnut. It's also called the thymus. It's the single most important organ you may have never thought about. Today I want to introduce you to it, tell you the strange truth about it, and why it leaves you so early, and then show you something that my team, Hamid Koja here in the audience, is working on, what they're building, and I believe it changes the conversation about human aging entirely. You're not slowly wearing out. One specific organ is clocking out early, and it took your defenses with it. Your immune system has soldiers. Most people know that. What most people don't know is those soldiers have to be educated, and the thymus is the only school they'll ever attend. Immature cells arrive from your bone marrow knowing nothing. Inside the thymus, they're taught two things. They're taught what the enemy looks like, and they're taught, just as importantly, what you look like, so they never attack their home. The graduates are called T cells. These cells that recognize a virus before it spreads, the cells that spot a tumor when it's still a handful of rogue cells. The cells that decide when an immune response should start, and crucially, when it should stop. Every one of them carries a unique receptor, like a face that fits only one enemy. A young thymus produces millions of these faces, an army of cells diverse enough to recognize the threats before they're ever even met. So picture this organ correctly. It's not a gland sitting quietly in your chest. It's a teaching center. It's the place where your body learns to defend itself. And here's the part that should stop you cold. Your immune system does not run on strength, it runs on schooling. And the school closes early in your life. The thymus does not wait for old age to decline, it starts shrinking when you're a teenager. It has a measurable half-life in human beings of about 15.7 years, which means that, like a radioactive element, it loses half of what it had, and then it loses half again, on a schedule. By the time you're 60, more than 90% of the function is gone. The active tissue has been replaced quietly by fat. Now follow the consequences, because this is where a small organ creates very large problems. As the school closes, you stop minting new and diverse defenders. The army stops getting new recruits and simply ages in place. We call this immunosenescence, and it shows up in ways every doctor, scientist, and researcher in this room recognizes. Vaccines work less well because there are fewer fresh cells to train. Infections that a young body shrugs off become serious. Cancer slips through more often because surveillance is thinned out. Autoimmune disorders rise because quality control that taught the cells not to attack has been degraded. And underneath all of this sits a slow fire we now call inflammaging. A chronic low-grade inflammation that does not roar, it smolders year after year, feeding heart disease, feeding metabolic disease, feeding the very conditions we think of as simply getting old. Here's the line that should change how nations budget for aging. 95% of healthcare spending for older Americans goes to chronic diseases, tied to the immune system. And more than a third of American adults, around 35%, already carry a kind of systemic inflammation that drives heart disease, diabetes, autoimmunity, and certain cancers. We've been treating these as separate epidemics. I'm suggesting they share an upstream cause. And that cause has a location. And that location stops working on a clock. The thymus runs on a 15-year half-life. It's the one organ in your body that quietly halves itself on a fixed schedule, and the countdown started when you were a teenager. We spend 95 cents of every healthcare dollar fighting fires lit by one organ the size of a walnut. So why have we not fixed it already? Well, because for decades our only tools have been blunt. When the immune system is overactive, as in autoimmune disease, we suppress it. We deplete cells. We block cytokines. We turn the volume down across the board, which leads to other systemic problems. When it's underactive, we try to crank it up. We've been swinging this pendulum between overreaction and shutdown, and both extremes carry a price. Suppression invites infection and raises cardiovascular, liver, and kidney risk. Stimulation invites the body to turn on itself and creates autoimmune disorders like multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid arthritis, and lupus. During COVID, the whole country was chasing a stronger immune system. But a supercharged immune system isn't a hero. It's a loaded weapon pointed in every direction, including yourself. A weak immune system lets the enemy in. An overcharged one starts shooting the hostages. You don't want more immunity, you want a smarter immunity. A weak immune system misses the threat. An overcharged one becomes the threat. We need to stop asking for a stronger immune system. We need to start asking for a smarter one. The thing we've almost never been able to do is the thing that the healthy young body does every day, which is to sit in the middle, hold homeostasis, and keep an immune system alert without being aggressive. Calm without being asleep. You can prescribe balance. Balance is not a drug. Balance is what a functioning thymus produces naturally. Because it's not just make soldiers, it also makes peacekeepers. And that insight is what set us on a very different path. Every immune drug we've ever made pushes the pendulum. None of them teach us to stop in the middle. Only the thymus does that. At FibroBiologics, we work with one of the most underestimated cells in the body, the fibroblast. It's a cell that builds and maintains your tissues. It's the quiet construction worker of human biology. We ask a question that sounds almost naive. If the thymus is a structure, and if fibroblasts are cells that build structures, could fibroblasts be taught to rebuild a thymus? The answer is on the screen behind me. We bring together three carefully selected ingredients: the fibroblasts, thymic epithelial cells, and T-cell progenitors that are the raw recruits. They self-assemble into a tiny three-dimensional organ, a thymus organoid, about 175 millionths of a meter across. Here's the part our manufacturing team is proudest of. It's grown in a rapid, matrix-free culture, no scaffold, no artificial framework holding it together. These cells build architecture themselves, the way they would inside you. It's ready to transplant in 3 days. It survives deep freezing and works after thawing. And critically, it doesn't require surgery. It goes in through a needle, under the skin, the way you would receive an ordinary injection. Now, a structure that looks right is not the same as a structure that works. So let me tell you what these organoids actually did. In culture, they switched on the exact genetic instructions that a real thymus uses. The growth factors and the signals with names like FOXN1 and interleukin 7. The precursor cells inside them did not just survive, they progressed step by step through the genuine stages of T-cell development and emerged carrying functional T-cell receptors. More than 99% of the graduating cells express the markers of true committed T-cells. This is not a hint of activity. This is a school in session. Then we took a harder test, and we transplanted these organoids into mice that have no working T-cells at all. Animals that cannot constitute an immune system on their own. 8 weeks later, the organoid had formed an organ-like structure you can see with the naked eye, sitting under the skin. And in the blood of these animals, T-cells appeared. They climbed over time and they climbed in proportion to the dose we gave. More organoid, more immunity. A biologic defense system rebuilt through a syringe in an animal that had none. Well, and these cells didn't stay put either. This is the elegant part. The organoid sits quietly under the skin, but the T cells it produces do exactly what new graduates are supposed to do. They leave. They travel into the lymph nodes, the command post of the immune system. And from there, they spread throughout the body. We're not patching one spot, we're seeding a distributed body-wide defense from a single injection. We are, in the truest sense, rebooting the immune system by recovering the lost functionality of the thymus. Evolution needed 500 million years to design a thymus. We grew a working one in 3 days, and it ships in a syringe. We didn't edit a single gene. We did something stranger. We reopened the Biology Academy, and we let the body teach itself. Here's what surprised even us. The organoids did not just produce one generic kind of T cell, they produced the full diversity of real immune education. They gave rise to regulatory T cells. The peacekeepers I mentioned earlier, these cells that protect you against autoimmunity and that calm inflammation. They gave rise to gamma delta T cells and natural killer cells, specialist units that guard against pathogens and cancer. And the receptors on these cells were broad and varied. An army capable of recognizing a wide range of threats rather than a single one. Remember the trap. The pendulum stuck between overreaction and shutdown. This is how you escape it. You do not push the system one way or the other. You rebuild the institution that makes both the soldiers and the peacekeepers. And you let it restore balance the way a young body does from the inside every day. Then we ask the boldest question of all. Could we aim it? We built a version of an organoid trained against melanoma, a form of skin cancer, and transplanted it into mice. The animals that received it grew significantly smaller tumors. The tumors filled with immune cells that had come to fight. The immune cells switched into an activated state. We'd not given them a drug that attacks cancer. We'd given them an organ that teaches their own body. We aimed a rebuilt organ at a tumor, and the body did the rest. That's not immunotherapy. That's immune education with a target. Let me be careful and precise because this room deserves precision, not hype. This work is in animal models. The road through human trials is real, rigorous, and we'll walk every step of it. I'm not here to sell you immortality. Immortality is a distraction. And frankly, it's probably the least interesting thing about the field. Longevity and a vibrant, healthy life during longevity is our goal. And I believe the goals of everyone at this amazing conference. Here's what I'm actually claiming. The longevity economy is projected to reach around $63 billion by 2030. And most of that money is chasing symptoms of a declining immune system. We're proposing to address the source. An off-the-shelf product manufactured in 3 days, stored frozen until needed, delivered by a simple injection that rebuilds the one organ aging takes from all of us. Not to add empty decades, but to compress the years of frailty and illness into as small a window as possible at the very end. Think about who this could serve. It could reverse age-related thymic decline in all of us. It could help children born without a functioning thymus who today face a devastating start to life. It could treat the long list of diseases tied to T-cell insufficiency, conditions where the body simply cannot make the defenders it needs. 3 very different patients, the aging adult, the newborn, and the immune deficient. And one underlying answer, rebuild the school and you serve all of them. That's the real prize. Not living forever, living fully, staying yourself almost all the way to the finish. 1 injection, 3 patients who could not be more different. The aging, the newborn, the immune deficient, the same answer rebuilds the immune system for all of them. Stop counting the years in your life, start fighting for the life in your years. Every single one of you, till the very end. Longevity industry keeps fighting for symptoms of a closing school. We decided to reopen that school. I opened by telling you that an organ inside you is shutting down on a schedule you never agreed to. I want to close by telling you that this is the first generation of human beings with a serious scientific reason to believe that the schedule can be rewritten. Every generation inherits a list of things we simply accepted. Plagues you prayed through, distances you never crossed, diseases you were told to make peace with. And every so often, a generation looks at those and says, no, not this, not anymore. The thymus has been on that list since the beginning of our species. Every human who's ever lived watched their defenses quietly dim, and not one of them could do anything about it. That's not history. That's every story that ended too soon. In every family, including yours, including mine. But that list is not permanent. It never was. It holds until the generation arrives that refuses it. We are that generation. The teacher can be called back. The school can reopen its doors. The light behind your breastbone does not have to fade into dark. We can turn it back on. It's no longer a dream. It's an organoid in a syringe waiting for the will to match the science. So let the record show that today in this room we decided the thymus comes off that list. Let us turn the light back on. Let us be the generation that finally did. Thank you.